Hello and welcome to the Shadow and Soul Storytime podcast. I'm your host, Rayneen Thebeau, and in these episodes we'll dive deep into shadowy and soulful conversation that uncover the lessons and the medicine that live within our personal stories and everyday experiences. In today's episode, I'm joined by Dalen Carr for a conversation that revolves around repatterning, reprogramming, healing, presence, awareness, discernment, alchemy. Very magical conversation. I'm so excited to share his wisdom with you. Now, before we dive into the conversation, here's an invitation. If you're able and if it's safe to close your eyes, and if it's not safe to close your eyes, then to take a couple of deep breaths here and to really start to bring in this intention of may I listen and may I receive from my whole entire body, from the whole of my being, so that as these stories are being shared, as the conversation is moving along from one place to the other, that we're able to be very, very present to what is bubbling up and what is arising, and that we can lean in with curiosity so that we can find what is in there for us. So with all that being said, thank you so much for being here. Let's jump in. All right. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome, Dalen Carr. I'm super excited that he's here, and I'm super grateful for the invitation that he extended to not only come and share his story on this podcast, but for me to join me on his, or for me to join on his as well. A little bit of background. So I met Dalen a little over a month ago now at Arcadia, which is a festival for a more beautiful world, and it absolutely is. It was my first time going. Was it your first time going as well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we met there, and I mean, there's so much to say around our experiences there as individuals, and I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit more about his story because I know it has ties back into there. But before we dive into the story, I'd love for you to take a moment to share a little bit about yourself with those listening.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, so my name is Dalen, and I am the host of the Magical Beast podcast. That is a new project, and Rainey's going to be on in a little while. I have recently emerged from a cocoon, the cocoon being chronic illness. If you met me like a year or 2 years ago, I would have been kind of a different person, or at least interacting with people felt a lot different at the time because I was in the throes of long COVID, which had a lot of different manifestations, but it was a lot of chronic fatigue syndrome, some pain throughout my body, and all these things. And it's been 18 months now, 19 months that I've really been on the healing path from that. And that has opened me up and led to me doing things like this, having these hopefully healing conversations and creating my own show about magic.
Ooh, I love the word magic. It's like one
Me
of my
too.
favorite words.
Mm.
Well, thank you again so much. Just out of curiosity, can you, because even I'm not sure, can you tell me a little bit more about long COVID and
Yeah,
what that means? And
yeah, for sure. So I've been on this healing journey for a while, and I realize now in hindsight that I actually had some chronic fatigue syndrome going on for at least a couple of years before I got long COVID, and I didn't really have language for that. And so I sort of compensated, as a lot of people do, by drinking like a lot of coffee and just willpower, telling myself all the things I have to do and I'll get through it. And yeah, long COVID was me getting COVID in August of 2021 and then having a pretty bad initial illness. It was like a bad flu. And then like 20, 25 days later, I was like, okay, I'm still spending most of the day in bed. Like, what's going on? And 6 months later, same situation. So it was just, it wasn't like the initial illness the whole time, thankfully, but it was just this really deep sense of fatigue and overstimulation. And I like talking about it because I know that there's a path to, you know, that many have walked to recovering from chronic illnesses. Things like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, food and electrical sensitivities, all of these things are sort of related, at least in terms of the hypothesis I've been operating on to get better. All of these things are related. What relates them is chronic overstimulation of the nervous system and subsequently the immune system. And that creates a sort of feedback loop that perpetually overstimulates. So it's the perception of danger in the body, which overstimulates the system, and then that is the said loop. So that's so breaking that loop and learning how to relax and kind of go within has been how I've navigated that.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. All right, so where does our story begin today?
Well, it begins at Arcadia, but I'm going to do that thing that happens in movies and books maybe a little bit too often, where the story starts and then you jump around in the timeline to make it make more sense.
No, I love
that. Okay, cool. Yeah, when it's done right, it can be really fun. Okay, so we met the third day of Arcadia, so Saturday.
Yeah.
And what I like about this story, were you there when Matthias gave the sort of opening talk at the beginning of the festival? Yeah, so that was powerful. He was the perfect person to do that, and he went into all the story, the etymology, the mythology behind the word Arcadia, all of the related symbols. But then he also shared an intention near the end, which was when we're dancing, to let the dance be a repatterning, right? And when he said that, I really felt it. I really felt that because, as I said, my whole recovery has been interrupting patterns. I'm doing this with my hand because I've been doing that with my hand a lot when I'm talking to the patterns, interrupting patterns and creating new ones. And so that this story is one of setting an intention and the container for it, and then navigating that container through intuition and experiencing the intention. And this was my first time experiencing that in such an intense way. So the first day of Arcadia, we were both builders, and so we had access to these early access to the venue and all of these really fun events for like 5 hours before other people got there. And I think it was during one of those, or maybe it was near the end of the night in the wall, where I've been talking to people intermittently and like having great conversations, but I was just kind of wandering by myself and was like, okay, I'm going to find the next person I interact with. And I see this really just frankly beautiful woman standing like 10, 15 feet to my left, also standing by herself. And my first thought, I sort of like looked at her. I was like, oh, she's very attractive. But she was holding this like fancy purse or whatever and was like wearing Chanel, whatever. And so I did the thing that a lot of people do when they are thinking about whether or not to approach someone that attracts them. And I thought like, oh, I don't need to talk to her. She's wearing whatever clothes. But that thought only lasted like a second or two. And then I thought, that's silly, I'm going to talk to her. And so that was like that was a significant moment because that was actually a rapid repatterning that happened. And I walked up and talked to her, and we had a very, over the course of a few hours, had like a very intimate conversation, and it was great. Like she was awesome. The next day, I run into her again, and it was very sweet. She's like, oh, I knew we were going to find each other today. And we wind up spending like 4 or 5 hours together. And we walk out to her car because eventually she's going to go back to her hotel to get ready for the night. She wanted to change into like a special Arcadia outfit. And so we sit in her Tesla for like 45 minutes talking and shared stories about when we were kids, talked about like scars we have, like literal physical scars that we have. Um, all the things people do when they're connecting. And yeah, I really liked her. And so when it was time to go our separate ways to get ready for the night, I thought, you know what? This is going to sound weird out of context, but I'll make it all make sense. Um, I thought, like, okay, it's time. I like this girl. This woman, she obviously likes me. And so I said, like, okay, is it all right if I kiss you? And she kind of like thought for a moment, and she said, why do you want to kiss me? And I said, because I like you. And then she thought again, she was a very sensitive and advanced person. And so she thought for a second and said, what would it mean if you kissed me? And as soon as she said that, I knew that we weren't going to make out. No, I'm kidding. That that was a really good question. And then I had another flash, like another rapid patterning thing that happened where I realized, oh shit, like in that moment, flashed in my head, like, oh, I don't actually know what I want from romantic situations in general. And so there was suddenly this massive awareness of like, oh, that was a really good question, and one that I haven't been asking myself. And so, yeah, she basically said like, not right now. She said, is that okay? I was like, yeah, of course, like it's okay. And she was very sweet about it. She said like, don't take it as a rejection. I do like you. And I thought, okay. So that was heading into the second night of Arcadia. And after that, the like middle 40 hours, I couldn't tell you like when or where or what point anything happened. It became very non-linear. Like when I try to think about it, I can't track things in time. But I do remember feeling that because I liked her. And then I think I really let go that evening and just kind of danced at the festival and kind of went into this whatever, I don't care mode. But then when I got back to my Airbnb that night, all the stories associated with what happened and the way that I had related to women up to that point, the way I had gone about seeking those sort of relationships, like it all came up, all the loneliness, and I knew the only thing to do was to sit with it. And so I was just, it was a lot. I did my best to just say like, it's okay, man. Like you're loved just the way you are, all of those things. And the next morning, it came up again in a big way before I went to Arcadia. And so I had to sit in my car and go through oh, can you still hear me?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Your video disappeared.
Oh,
Cool. I went through a repatterning exercise, and what I realized was happening. Yeah, again, I don't exactly remember the timeline, but at some point that weekend, I realized what was happening was that when I was like 17 years old and feeling lonely and not sure how to relate to women or to find the relationships that I wanted, I did what a lot of young men do, and I went online. And I found the like so-called pickup community. And one of the consequences of that, I don't know if you're aware of that community generally. Are you, like the pickup artist scene?
no, my husband and I have been married for like over 12 years. We talk about that. We're like, man, we got to skip a lot of stuff.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So yeah, it's there's a lot of really bad advice. There's a little bit of good advice, but one of the things that happened when I was 17 and was following that guidance was that I internalized a lot of ideas. One of them was that in order to like determine if a woman is interested in me, I need to like make out and or have sex with her as quickly as possible in order to figure out if she's interested. And that's a program I internalized that had been running subconsciously for like 12 years. And I realized that my interactions with like half of all of humanity was sort of being filtered through that on some level. And of course it goes back to like early, so I made the connection later on, like it goes back to early childhood and just feelings of inadequacy, and we can get more into that. But so the next day was when we met, and I showed up in the wall during the podcast recording. Oh yeah, this is a funny moment. And had, done my best to repattern and be okay with what was happening. And I walk in and I end up like sitting a few feet behind her because that's where there was space, and she was like leaning on this other guy's shoulder. And that inner child, it came up so fucking strong in that moment, sitting in the wall. I was literally like this for just like half an hour. I don't even know if I heard the podcast because I was just like, it's all right, man. Like, she's just having a moment with another person. It's okay. And then and then we met. I don't know. Like I said, the timeline's all messed up in my head now. But we met within like, just as I was coming out of that experience. And what was interesting, because I had seen a lot of what was happening, and I sat down next to you and I wound up looking over and like we made eye contact. And I had this sort of crucial insight where it's like there was attraction, but it wasn't the physical attraction. It was energetic, and I could just see you. And I was really glad when you started talking to me. I was like, oh yeah, this is a person I want to talk to. And so all of that, like previous 48 hours, I think was part of allowing that moment to happen. Mm-hmm. And then I discovered that, you and Alexandra, the other friend I made that day, had also both just started podcasts. And I was like, oh, this is funny. So this is what I was being prepared for. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I love that. The things that stand out so far to me the most about that story is yours and her like presence. For her to ask like those, because I feel like most interactions of like like feeling attraction toward each other, you've been talking, there's been like intimate conversation, like now you're looking for maybe some like intimate like physical connection, and for her to be able to ask you like, well, why, and like what would that mean, like I think that's beautiful on her part, and I also think it's really beautiful on your part to be with those questions and be like, oh shit, like I actually don't 100% know what I really want here. And I feel like when I think back to times in my own life where I've run into that, like, oh God, like, I'm also reaching out for something, but I don't really know what it is. And the ability to catch that, to take it home, to sit with it, and then to come back into that environment, see all that stuff and be able to tend to yourself is just, it's beautiful. And it also makes me think too, I'm like, damn, I'm only at Arcadia though, right? Are there like people who are paying this close attention to their everything, right? Like you're saying with Mateus, it's like setting this stage. The whole festival got to be this ceremony of sorts, like a practice of sorts. And it sounds like you kind of got to do some shadowy work leading into like, okay, now I've done this shadowy work and I feel more prepared to interact in a way that maybe feels more in alignment, is what I'm picking up.
For sure. Yeah. So I like the term shadow work because that's a big part of what I've been doing leading up to the festival, just to be prepared for that sort of energetic environment, to be able to perceive these things happening. And then when I got there, it's like, okay, well, now there's more of it to be done. And yeah, like it's following the intuitive path is really beautiful, but I realized what happened in that moment, like it required that preparation because in order for me to meet the intention that was set, it's like in order to dissolve the experience of essentially using women for like validation,
Yeah.
I had to be ready to feel into the trauma that had uh, led to that pattern coming about.
Yeah.
Um, I guess I can just go here now. Like part of the preparation, this feels significant because we had been in the same room with her that day. Part of the preparation was during my healing journey, I would intermittently, so I should say I was following something called the Gupta program for chronic illnesses. And after 8 months, that was the only thing I found that worked. And I mostly just focused on the content of that program because it was awesome. But I would occasionally check into um, different podcasts, like spiritual podcasts, to get inspiration. And one of those was on, obviously, Aubrey Marcus's show, where he had Peter Crone and Vylana on. I don't know if you saw this, but Peter Crone did something actually very similar to the sort of self-administered internal family systems shadow work that I've been doing, where
Mm.
he took Vylana into this space and kind of took her back into her childhood and connected her to these stories about expectations of needing to look pretty. And yeah, I can't summarize it. It's worth listening to. But I sort of, um, excuse me, I sort of followed along with that. And so when he would ask her a question, I would pause and feel into it. And what I connected to in her story, and this was the preparation. This is why I was able to go all the way back and see the situation for what it was. I remembered being like 3, 4, 5 years old. And I would go out with, I'd be out and about like with my mom. And I remember a handful of occasions where older women, maybe strangers, maybe my mom's friends, would be like, oh, look at his eyes, look at those curls. All the women are going to love him. Or all the women are he's going to break, like they would tell these stories. And that was something I heard more than once. And I think at the time there was already some complex trauma things happening and already feeling the loneliness. And so I internalized that from the time I was like 4. And then that created an expectation that sort of merged with what I experienced when I was 16, 17, and hearing these stories from the pickup artists who were also just like, I won't say all of them, but I would say most of them are also just sort of traumatized people teaching men to use women for validation. And yeah, I had internalized that story of like, everyone needs to like me in that way. And I need to move into physical intimacy as quickly as possible. And so where I'm at now is like having let go of all of that. I've made some incredible friendships with women. And I've always had female friends, but like since then, there's been an acceleration of like, oh my God, there's so much that I can talk about with these people. Like my friend Sarah, my friend Karen, my friend Marissa, and we're getting to know each other now. And Alexandra is really cool. I can tell there's a lot to explore with her. So I lost the thread a little bit, but going back in time, that moment was really significant because that ceremony that Vylana was in, that Peter Crone led, that I was able to feel into a few days later, I spent time with that podcast. A few days later, I went into medicine and had a big heart opening. And so that was the preparation. And Matthias's intention, the energy of the venue, the energy of all the people there. It's like, okay, this is what you wanted. So here we go. Let's go into it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really beautiful. I feel like that's actually like a perfect what you said about the Aubrey Marcus's podcast with Vailana. And who did you say the other person was?
Peter Crone, who's awesome, by the way. Yeah.
So you're listening to that podcast, and as he's asking questions to stop and reflect for yourself. I love that, and I want to invite everyone who's listening right now. Like when things come up, if you're able, if it's safe to like stop and write these questions down or to feel into it for yourself. That's literally the whole point, right? Like you said, you're listening to these podcasts for inspiration. I imagine those that are listening right now are listening because they have a sense that there's something here for them, right? And
Mm.
as we share our stories, it's like we can relate to seeking validation. I mean, that's a very human thing. And even you sharing your story around with women, like it makes. I mean, I don't think it's just like a man woman. I think it's like an every person thing, right? Like if we can have some kind of deeper, so we think intimacy, that means they must like me for me, right? Like physical intimacy means like a deeper, like more emotional, and it makes sense. Like I think as humans we're always like seeking validation from the outside.
Mm.
And so I'm curious, with this validation piece, what has most stood out to you, like on the other side of Arcadia? Like since coming home and integrating, have you found any more bits and pieces around the validation piece, or I like to call them like markers or like red flags? Like how can you sense and feel into when it's like, oh, like here's a part of me that's seeking validation? Like do you have ways of being? Are there feelings that come up? What are the patterns that maybe are like recognizable that help you see like that coming back up?
Yeah. So since Arcadia and the practices, one of the most important things, and I think I actually heard Matthias say this a long time ago. I don't remember when, but I've experienced it a lot. And he said to be spiritual doesn't mean to like be out there. Being spiritual just means breathing properly. And so one of the most valuable things I've taken away from the illness and that I'm experiencing now is just like deep, slow breathing, especially in the moments when these things come up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've built enough resilience and pattern recognition now that when they do come up, if I'm like busy with something, um, I'll just smile and take a breath in and see it for what it is. And I'll just say, okay. And sometimes I'm able to reframe the situation right away. So I just acknowledge that the thought is there, breathe in, smiling, I think chemically, physiologically is significant. And yeah, do a quick reframe. If it's a little bit bigger, I take note of it, or if I'm able to step away from what I'm doing, I'll feel into it a little bit more deeply, or I'll take note of it and say like I actually talk to it like it's autonomous, and I say
Mm.
we'll revisit this. It's okay. We'll talk later. That sort of thing.
Yeah, I love that. It requires a great deal of presence to be able to catch that on the front end or like while it's happening. Because I think most people can relate, we can all relate to hindsight, right? I mean, like, like something didn't feel right about that. And then if we let ourselves sit with it, it's like, oh, I was acting from that place, which is
Mm.
totally fine. It's totally normal. And it's beautiful to catch it no matter where you catch it, whether it's after the fact or whatever. But I think the more presence we can bring into the moment to what it is that we're feeling, and like you're saying, being like, okay, let me breathe, let me make a different choice. Very cool.
Yeah, and a different choice can be made. Like I think through repetition, I've been able to realize that. So I think working through the Gupta program and just beginning the process of repatterning, it did start to work right away, but there was a lot of repetition. So beginning in the layer of the mental and just thoughts, engaging with the thoughts and beginning to repattern those. And then there was a slow process of moving deeper into the nervous system. And then there are always oscillations with these things. There'll be really deep experiences of moving into the nervous system. Um, but the repetition, even if it doesn't feel like it's working, like it is, and it will, um, you'll notice.
Yeah.
Yeah, like things that were there, things that were running the show, just aren't there anymore, or they're in a fundamentally different relationship to self, and kind
Hmm.
of operating in different roles.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. There was a program I was leading in October, and one of the topics of conversation was alchemy. And for me personally, when I feel into like, okay, what does that even mean? My personal experience around that is like, as soon as we can bring awareness to something, the alchemical process begins with just the awareness of it,
Mm.
the ability to like see into the unconscious, to pull that thing into the light. Like as soon as you see it, as soon as you can feel into it, it's already began. Like because now what was unconscious is now conscious. And so I'm curious for you, what has that like alchemical process looked like, felt like, what maybe was shadowy at first, like what are the gifts now that you're feeling on the other side of seeing all those patterns and programs?
Sure. Yeah. Since this is story time, I'll jump back 13 years. So I'm glad you brought up alchemy. I am someone who has always had very vivid dreams. And I remember my freshman year of high school, I think it was, I started to become a bit overwhelmed by feelings of like isolation and depression. And but I had this very strong inner world that could at times be chaotic, but it could also be feel very could feel very safe at times. And I remember having this dream that is alchemical and astrological in hindsight, where I I think I talked about this on my podcast. I was in this like huge body of water with a bunch of my friends from school, a bunch of classmates, and it was like we were basically just flying. We didn't have to swim through it. We were sort of just floating through the water, and off in the distance there were two really massive, like primordial looking sea creatures. I think they were sharks, but they were like huge, swimming in a circle, which in hindsight, like that's, yeah, Pisces. And um, then there was a door just in this like vast empty space that we were in with these primordial creatures that was the entryway into our dining hall, our cafeteria or whatever at the school. And so we got back there, everyone else went back into the middle of the room. And I remember looking at my classmates, but I stood on the precipice and looked back out, and down, way down below where we had been, so like a 45-degree angle, like a few hundred yards away, there was a cave. And this creature, like I guess dragon, I would have described it as at the time, like stuck its head out and like did that, and then brought its head back in, like it was beckoning me. And so at the time, I talked to my dad about the dream, as one does, and he gave me this book called Jung and the Alchemical Imagination by a guy named Jeffrey Raff, which is a good book. But he showed it to me because one of the first symbols, it was like something to do with Christian Rosenkreutz. I don't remember the exact name. That was like the pseudonym that was used, and um, it was a series of images. And the first one was like the two creatures spinning in the water, and then the series of images develops, and it's like this Rosicrucian text that's like 700 or 800 years old. And so that was my sort of entry point into these things. And then um, interestingly, like a bit of a tangent, but we actually, like a year later, my dad was like, "Hey, you want to come to Tai Chi with me, like on Saturday morning?" And we did this for like a year, and I said, "Yeah, sure, Tai Chi, let's do it." And he had met a Jungian analyst who had actually helped write that book. He lived across town from us, so it was like the guy that helped write the book became my like therapist slash Tai Chi teacher. It
That is so
was a
cool.
very, yeah, it was a very helpful relationship at the time. Um, And then, so yeah, that sort of, to get back to your question, like that preceded a lot of, I think the best word would be like eruptions from the unconscious, from the shadow, from the things that I was not in relationship with. Um, the details don't matter, but just like trauma from when I was younger, and these things that I didn't really know how to calibrate. And that was sort of the beginning of my awareness of the alchemical path, both in terms of synchronicity, like symbols that I experienced outside, but then also symbols that were arising organically from within. Um, Now my understanding of alchemy is completely different, but that was a beginning.
Yeah. I think that's real. How old did you say you were when you got that book?
15.
Wow. What a cool like age to be receiving something like that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, it
beautiful.
was powerful. I wound up. I think it helps. I don't really remember how much of it made sense, but I wound up reading like a lot of Jung and
Hmm.
Taoist texts when I was like 16. I would,
Yeah, it's a lot of expansive philosophy for a young one.
for sure, for sure.
Cool.
I don't know how I or if I integrated any of it at the time, but it was nice to just retreat into the books at least.
Yeah. I always think that like even if it's not something that we feel like it was necessarily integrated when we were that age, exposure to
Mhm,
that kind of stuff, it like plants a seed, right?
for sure.
Because if you had been, let's say it had it and you're just receiving it now, it takes time for that kind of stuff to like sink into the body. And I think that's super dope. So here, let me feel for a second.
Sure.
I would love to give something to the listeners to feel into, and I would love for you to consider, based on the story that you've shared around like this repatterning that you experienced when you're at Arcadia, especially as it relates to relationships, because it's something that it's just so human, right? And wanting validation, and no matter what kind of relationship it is, be it romantic partnership or friendship or our family or our coworkers or whatever. Do you have any questions or journal prompts or things to feel into that were maybe helpful for you as you were sitting with this yourself?
Yeah, I think I didn't know we were going to go here. I think I wrote some things down a few weeks ago, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll visit that in a moment. But the first thing I would say would be, um, what led me to this place was a chronic feeling of being out of relationship. And when I kind of entered the healing path and was able to create space and like look at these different things in my life that had happened without judgment to the best of my ability, one of the things I found was that I value relationships more than anything. Um, and so I think the intention of, if this is a feeling that you have of like, what is it that is making me feel, that is perpetuating the illusion of isolation,
Hmm.
and just asking that question, or even just setting the intention of having deeper relationships. It's like you said a moment ago, these things will take time, but spending time with that intention and with that question, uh, things will start to shift. And so, actually, if you don't mind, I did was
Yeah,
writing
yeah,
down exercises I was conceiving uh,
absolutely.
like a week ago. I think it was in this notebook.
No worries, take your time.
Yeah, okay. So for me, one thing that has been useful, that can be useful, you don't want to do it all the time, but it's a great thing to create some space for, is to actually deliberately bring patterns up. And so when it comes to being in relationship and not doing it just for the sake of validation, um, a mantra that can be really powerful is simply saying, I am loved just the way I am. And like, if you can access that and just feel it, then awesome, do that. For me, if there were, or if there were, and if there are for you, barriers to experiencing that. So like, I am loved just the way I am. And maybe you feel a little bit of tension in your chest. That's what it was for me. Maybe you hear a voice like, what the fuck are you talking about? You did this and this and this. Then that's a really significant moment. And feeling into that and engaging that, it can be really stimulating. And so I would recommend creating space for this. If that voice or something like it does come up, saying like, no, it's okay, and just engaging in a back and forth compassionate dialogue, asking it what its perspective is. This is all inspired by internal family systems, by the way, but asking it what it means, what it's experiencing, what he or she is experiencing, can be really useful to get an idea of what time frame they're existing in, or like what moment in time, and say like, okay, well, I'm 28 years old now, like, it's okay, you can come to this moment. And so ultimately, unconditional love is like, love is the answer. And so that connecting to love and repeating that mantra, anything that emerges that is fighting against that experience, that would be the thing I'd recommend spending some time with.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a beautiful invitation.
Cool.
Because and you said it, thank you for sharing your internal dialogue, because it is exactly that. And whatever the mantra is, whether it is I am loved or any other mantra, if we have a practice of sitting with that and we feel the eye rolling, the, like you said, the little like knot in your chest, it's like, that is, yes, like follow that. Like, what is that telling you? What is that showing you? So thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing that I think is really common, and this is kind of implemented in its own way inside of the Gupta program for chronic illnesses, but it's also in internal family systems and other places. But like, if it's that eye rolling part, you can call it the inner critic, if you'd like. And what they are doing very often is sort of preemptively protecting us from criticism from the outside. So it's like probably a little 5 or 6 or 7 or 8-year-old child that is protecting us from whatever mean kids on the playground, or parents or teachers or coaches, whatever it might have been, that caused stress and made us feel unsafe. It's a preemptive protection mechanism, and that part still thinks you're 7 or 12 years old or whatever it might be. So engage with it accordingly. Like, it's a wounded child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ooh, so good. So good. I love this stuff so much.
Yeah, me too.
For me personally, if I'm leaning into this piece around like validation, a huge marker for me is insecurity. Like, as soon as I feel insecure about anything, it's like, okay, there's something here. And I've kind of started to find, and this is actually in the last solo cast that I did, I'm beginning to find this theme with validation and insecurity, and its ties back into like personal power too, like the ability to like pick up my own power. And it's interesting when we can, because those are generally feelings that we don't want to feel. And it's like, a lot of times it's easier to, find words, to like react from that place and to get the thing or to do the thing to soothe that emotion, which really kind of in a lot of ways only makes it worse on the other side, I find.
For sure.
But we're trying to escape it, or we're trying to fix it, or we're trying to soothe it, and we're not at all. Actually, the only way to really soothe it and to fix it, maybe a better word is heal it, is to be with it and be curious about it, and like you said, like make friends with it.
Yeah, and absolutely. And making, I think curious is a key word, because making the decision, intention in all of these things, until you experience it and really realize it, it can be hard to know this, but like, intention sets the stage for all of these things. And just making the choice to be curious can actually shift the physiological state just a little bit, like create just a little bit of space to have that interaction, or a lot of space, depending on where you're at. So yeah, curious is a great word. I'm glad you used that.
Yeah. Intention is too, because if I look back at like the times that I have reacted from that place, if I had been able to pause, make some space, take a breath, be curious, ask myself this question of like, what is my intention here?
Mm,
It's like it's harder to move from a reactive place when you ask yourself the question of what is my intention? Because if you really sit with that question, then you're likely going to lean into an answer, and then you get to choose like, ooh, is that actually like how I want to move?
mm.
Or, oh, I don't actually know. Hmm, do I want to move from a place that isn't clear? Because that can be a messy place to move from.
Yeah, I can. And I will say, just as someone, because I know people experience like varying degrees of stimulation. Sometimes they're aware of it, sometimes they're not. So I just, for the people, I've interacted with so many people who have dealt with like chronic illnesses. So I just want to throw this out there that like, if you're out and about and something like that comes up and it feels overwhelming,
Mm.
it can also be powerful to not take it super seriously. So like, it might be something that you need to spend time with later, but just that quick like, it's okay. I don't even know what the fuck my intention is right now. That's all right. I'm just trying to like get through Walmart right now. That can that's okay too.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I definitely am someone that can lean more toward the harsher, like stricter, more serious side. And I love the invitation to be like, and it's okay. It's not a big deal. Like that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a part that's in you, and she's just doing her thing. You know what that looks like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So is there anything that's like bubbling up for you around the story that you shared, or are there more like things that were attached to that you were hoping to share more of?
Yeah, yeah, a little bit. I mean, we can try to explore it. Because you did ask earlier, sort of what's happened since Arcadia, but I talked about my exposure to alchemy. So the ritual, I mean, it was a party, but also the ritual that was Arcadia, like
Mhm.
that made me aware of some things. There's the term in yoga of like the journey of the self through the self to the self,
Mhm.
and I feel like what I experienced at Arcadia was a sort of convergence of everything. What's the word for that? Uh, doesn't matter. A convergence of everything I've been healing, looking at, attempting to manifest or manifesting. Um, it was like I experienced all of it the entire time I was at Arcadia.
Nice.
And then since then, there have been a handful of moments where I realized that what I'm experiencing is what I'm manifesting. And so there's a continual journey of tapping into like the parts that feel isolated or don't feel safe. And one other one that's just related to the story earlier, I had a big moment recently realizing the stories in my head about. So I played football and basketball from a very young age. And I just, in hindsight, like I did that for so long from the time I was very young that I realized recently, like, oh, so much of my personality was filtered into that role. So like when I was really young, my parents and grandparents would say like, "Oh yeah, he's going to be in the NFL," and that was just like that was an expectation that I downloaded. And in hindsight, like I was a little bit, I was a very sensitive boy, a little bit autistic, even a little bit feminine, and yet like me playing football is just hilarious. And it's not even that I was like bad at it, but I realized recently there was still a lot of attention or tension around that. Like, oh, I'm still trying to like please my coaches from the time I was 15.
Mm.
And I've been doing jujitsu as part of my healing journey for over a year now. I've had to take a little break recently, but that's been very healing, and that's been an access point into me feeling into that. So it's like, oh, I can recalibrate the way I relate to men, because these are in my mind, more masculine practices.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I guess my point is that it's an ongoing process, and I connected to that sensitive little boy and was like, it's all right, man. Like you don't have to like run into people and try to give them concussions. And there's a lot of space there. And I had a big energetic release talking to a friend on the phone recently, around all that. So yeah, trying to bring that inner child into the light. Is that the right word? And just kind of let him be who he is, instead of like obsessively doing like basketball drills in the backyard. Like, yeah, I remember the tension in my nervous system when I used to do that. It's like, no, that's not where we are anymore.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Thank you for
Yeah.
opening that door. I actually want to take a moment to invite those listening to feel into your childhood, and like what what were the main activities, spaces, groups, influences in those formative years, and what were the expectations, the coaching around it, the lessons. Like, I can even think for myself personally. I played sports also, and flag football was a sport that I played with my brother. My dad was a coach. Like, all of our friends played, and I remember him and the other coaches. It was always like, don't put your hands on your knees. Don't let them see you're tired. And so it was always like, even
Yeah.
if you're exhausted, like, I'm fine, I'm fine. And like, it's that kind of stuff. Like, I understand the purpose that it serves totally. And when it's something that's just drilled into you, like, how do you carry that into your day to day and into your adulthood? Well, for me personally, it's looked like going and going and going and pushing, and like, don't let them see you're tired. Don't act tired. Like, don't be tired. Like, put your hands, suck it up, like, open, like, you know what I mean? So it's interesting. Like, I think everyone, we're, as children, doesn't matter the activity, but there were people in our life, there were places, things that we were involved with that absolutely shaped us in some way. And in a lot of ways, really beautiful. But there's a shadow and a light side to everything. So yeah, I just invite this moment to really think like, okay, what were those circles? What were those activities? What was that environment like? What lessons did I learn there? What was, I'm trying to think of a better word, but what were those ways of being that still show up today? Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it couldn't have happened any other way. And I am grateful for it. Just realizing that there was a lot of self energy that got put away in order to sort of calibrate to that role and to those expectations, which which generalizes. Yeah, you're talking about putting your hands on your knees. Like, yeah, when I started playing tackle football, the time we were like in fourth or fifth grade, man, like the coaches, somehow there were like 7 or 8 guys who just like had time to be our coaches, and they were all like, they were all doing their best, and I appreciate that. But they would be like, we'd be lined up doing like ab exercises or whatever, like on the verge of puking, I guess, and they would be yelling like, when you go out there on Saturday and you put your helmet on, you're going to war with your brothers. And we were 11. Like, it was fucking wild. And like, I understand the purpose of it because of the perspective that I now have, but at the same time I'm like, yeah, but also let's be adults. Like, we're having children, like, football is a cult, and we're having children give each other concussions from the time that they're like 8, 9 years old. it's wild, but everyone's on their own path.
No, it absolutely is wild. And at the same time, whether it's football or any other kind of thing, even the way that, you know, a lot of people are expected to perform at work nowadays, right? And I think this kind of comes back to this conversation of alchemy too, where I think someone who's truly embracing a path that is integrating alchemy is someone who is so okay with and so at peace with all of the things that are quote unquote bad or
Mhm.
right, because it's like I personally believe that we come into this life needing to experience certain things for our evolution. And so that can look super fucked up, and like not okay at all, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's not negating tragedy and terrible things. It's being able to hold both. Like something can be super fucked up and like not right, and like you said, like a cult. And at the same time, it's like, and what an opportunity if we choose it. We do have to choose it to for it to be like an opportunity for growth, right? We wouldn't have that growth without that. It's like strength training, right? We cannot strengthen and build our muscle if we don't slightly tear it.
Mhm.
And I think that's probably one of the most important things to me personally, not just like for my own self, but for the work that I do in the community that I cultivate is how can we be so okay with all of it. It's like you in that moment, right? Sitting behind her with her head leaned on him, and like instead of being all pissed about it or upset about it, you breathe, you be with yourself, and you're like, okay, like this is okay, and you're taking away medicine now from that experience instead of being, butthurt about it. Like that is that is beautiful. That is alchemy. Um, that is walking like in an awake state, in a curious state.
Yeah, thank you for that reflection. So, okay, with you saying all of that about alchemy, how did you interpret the day that we had the Q&A session? Um, Sorry, I just thought like, yeah, I totally fucked up the timeline for my story earlier, but it doesn't matter. It was all non-linear. Um, when we had the Q&A session and Aubrey was talking beforehand about the experiences, like, okay, well, someone asked him about his practices, which he does, and he said something to the effect of like he's not someone that necessarily does the same thing every day, except for Hape. He said like, yeah, there are practices that help, but sometimes you just have to be an alchemist.
Hmm.
Um, what do you remember that moment? And like, if so,
I
what?
I do believe I remember that question. Is that the one where he was like saying that like he gave a little bit of an answer, but then he also referred to his book, right? Is that the
Yeah, well, because someone asked about his like practices, he's like, well, I did write a whole book about that. And so I won't go into detail here, but yeah, sometimes you're not able to do all the things that you like to do, and you have to just be an alchemist. So I'm wondering like how you took that specific line, because I thought that was interesting.
So when you say it back, the thing that actually struck me most from that question and that answer, and even what you just said right now, was for me personally, I was sitting there and I was like, I just remember nodding my head because, when I'm home and I'm in routine and there's spaciousness, there are a lot of practices that I turn to on a very regular basis, and how I tend to my nervous system, how I tend to my physical body, how, just like when you're just, when I have that, I can really tend to myself. And being at Arcadia, like I had just come out of leading my very first mystery school, which was like all of October. I had the first year anniversary of my business with the launch of my podcast. 2 days later, we left for Arcadia. We landed. I was like seeing, because our family, my husband and I are both from there, so we are seeing our family. The next day, Arcadia started. My sleep schedule's all messed up, so it was like non-stop. I was so like, and I don't have all the ways that I resource myself here, there. I didn't have time for my luxurious practice and this and that. And so when he was saying that, I just remember thinking like, yeah, like
Mm.
sometimes you don't have like that perfect environment or all of your tools or all of the time or all of the whatever. And at the same time, it's like when we do have the time, when we do have the spaciousness, and we do have the ability to really tend to ourselves and engage in these kinds of practices and in this kind of work, it bolsters us in the times we don't have it. So that, perfect example, Arcadia, we could show up at like, what were we showing up at? Like 2,
2 in the
2
afternoon.
p.m. and going until like 2 a.m. every single day.
Yeah.
Like literally going home, sleeping, waking up, eating, showering, and repeat, repeat. Like no time for practice, no time for this. And how are you, for me, when he said that, it was like, how are you just like living your practice? How are you making every moment your self-care, your energetic hygiene? Like how do you do that for yourself? Like just in the moment.
Mm.
That's how it struck me. And it's like, okay. Because it was that opportunity to be like, I have stamina. Like I've built up stamina. I can be as
Right.
present I can be. I can make the best decision I can make. Every single moment we do have an opportunity to say like, what is the next best thing I could do for myself? What is the next most true and alignment thing that I can do? And I think as long as we can follow that as, like you said, intuitively as possible, there's nothing else we can do except the next best thing we can do. And even if we quote unquote mess it up, it's just an opportunity to be like, okay, not that, what can I choose different next time? Like it's just information.
It's just information. Yeah, my friend Karen, who's a coach, said to me recently, like, there's no. I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly. She said, "There's no wrong way to do it, and it's an infinite game."
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, yeah. I really liked where you took that and what you were saying before about there being really like horrible looking experiences. I think the day we met, I went on a roll talking about alchemy because I just read a book that has been really influential for me. But it basically says like energetically, obviously there are experiences from a human perspective that are just anyone would consider to be bad, but energetically there's just energy, like it's not positive or negative,
Mm-hmm.
and that all can be used and alchemized. And so in that moment, like when he said that, that's where I took it, was like, right, just breathe in and hold what I need to get through this. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that too. I feel like the word that comes up you saying that is kind of brings us back to intention. And if your intention is whatever your intention is, like let's say in that moment you were trying to come back to self, you're trying to release maybe what doesn't serve you or whatever it might be. If that's the intention you're holding and you're using your breath to do that, then you're doing it through your breath. I think some people get really like stuck and like choked up on a lot of things, like how do I do this, how do I do that, and we want to make it complicated. We think it's complicated, but really
Mm.
everything in life, especially these kinds of things, are really really simple. And I think it does come down to intention and presence. And I like what you said about your friend, she's a coach, because it is like this like polarity of like yes and like two things can be true at the same time, like you know
Yeah, and just one more thing that's flowing for me in terms of following intuition and setting the intention of repatterning, and then recognizing, for me it was like very, how do I articulate this, is visual and somatic at the same time. So I see the person, I have the energetic experience of seeing the person, especially in Arcadia, like, and then feel in my body like, okay, yeah, let's interact with this person, or like this is one of those moments. And that was to go back to the early on in the story when I saw that woman, like there was probably a 2 to maybe 5 second delay of me not talking to her, and all the stories came up associated with why I wouldn't do that. But then just weren't there anymore. Like it was, I think that was Arcadia. I think that was the preparation. That was the intention, all of it. I was like, yeah, okay, all those stories are there. Yes, and let's go talk to her. And then I got what I got out of that series of interactions.
Yeah.
So that is like, to me, that is following the intuitive path.
Yeah. And I love that you like circled back to that moment, because I had the same thought that I had when you first mentioned it. And it's, how many times we're walking through our day and we have a choice point, and we might like feel inclined to do one thing, and then rational mind or whatever comes up here and it's like talks us out of it, right? And a lot of times that's where we follow, and that's okay. It's like not something to like judge. And back to this thing about curiosity, what would it be like to, just as you did, to not listen to that and instead to go and to have this conversation? Even for myself at Arcade, I can think of a moment just like that. I had, because I grew up in Las Vegas, one of my childhood best friends was actually working the event. He works at area, is it 15? Yeah.
Area
He was
15.
working there. He was a bartender. And I had gotten to spend some time with him. Like, I mean, he's working the whole time, but occasionally I could go like get a hug and I think this was actually on day 3 too, also. So it's the end of the night. I had intentions of going to the Meow Wolf part, and I wanted to go by myself. And because the night before I had went with him, and we got like in this really beautiful deep conversation, but we didn't really explore Meow Wolf. And so I was like, oh, like I'm gonna go to Meow Wolf now. And I was like, oh, you should go say goodbye, because this might be the last time that you see him, like before you leave. And then this other thought came, and I was like, no, but what if he's getting off and then he wants to come, and then you have to have this conversation that like you want to go alone.
Yeah, that's funny.
And so I had this thought, and I was like, no, like don't, no, like go say goodbye. So I turn around and I go say goodbye, and to go say goodbye. And when I do that, I had this interaction with, actually, Light Language. She's one of the artists there. I like passed him. It was like, if I had made that decision exactly at that time, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to see him, to pass him. But I did, and I saw him, and I was like, oh, wow, I can say thank you to him for the amazing set he had. And in that conversation, one, I got to interact with him. I got to show my appreciation. And by the end of that interaction, it was like, hey, like, invite him to come onto the podcast, which he was totally stoked to. And now I get to have this interview with this really wonderful person that I get to. But it kind of comes back to like this with you too. If you hadn't listened to that, if you had let that first instinct of like, no, like, you wouldn't have had all those deep connecting points with her. You wouldn't have had the opportunity to have her ask you those questions, and then to go home and to be with this part of yourself and to heal another layer of this way of being in relationship. Like all of the medicine and the magic that came from one decision to go talk to somebody, right? Same with mine. So one decision to go say goodbye, right? So for those listening, think about all the times, and that seemingly mundane, like seemingly like not important or that big of a deal. And it's not to put all this pressure. It's just an invitation, like, wow, what could life be like if we didn't essentially manipulate ourselves out of these intuitive little desires and longings and prompts to go do a thing? Because we do it all the time. We do it all the time.
For sure. Yeah, it sounded like in that moment you had a part that just really wanted to withdraw, which is totally relatable. Yeah, I think for me, one of the things I'm most grateful for, and something I was thinking about right before Arcadia, as far as like a article that I want to write down the road. Right now, podcast is as much as I can handle. But one thing I was thinking about is like, okay, what is it that jujitsu and like recovering from chronic illness have in common, like the Gupta program or just a spiritual discipline, I guess you could call it. And I realize it's the cultivation of discernment. For jujitsu, it's like the cultivation of discernment in the moment when training. It's like, okay, how hard should I be training? Okay, should I tap to this arm bar? Like there are just infinite opportunities to exercise that muscle in a very short amount of time. And then with the Gupta program, it's like actually learning to trust my own body more than concepts. Because until I got in just far enough, and this is why I think a lot of self help doesn't work for most people. Until I actually got in far enough and was like actually in communication with these unconscious layers or semi-conscious layers, it was just more concepts that I was trying to enforce upon myself,
Mhm.
um, as a judgment call. But then that's just yet another energy drain and just yet another layer of non-useful abstractions on top of all of the patterns that have been running. And so I say all that to say that in the moment, in reflecting on that moment, and to share with people like that it's possible to be consciously to have that sort of like interaction with life. And I'm really grateful to have cultivated that ability in the moment to be like, no, this is the experience we're going to have right now. And see, and you use the term choice point, which is, it's funny you use that term. Like that's come up a lot for me lately. If that hadn't happened, this is kind of silly because it did happen, but like if that hadn't happened, I might still be in that pattern.
Yeah.
And like who knows what that would look like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. The word that's coming up is deny. Like, it wouldn't have just been you in that moment denying yourself the opportunity to have an interaction with this person, but like the ripple effect of that denial and like what that
Yeah.
could be potentially denying you now in terms of the growth that you've had for that and the opportunity to heal again, like that layer. Um, and I love that you bring in this piece about discernment, and especially with the jujitsu, like wow, like what a cool practice of like absolutely like moment to moment, like very important to have solid discernment skills in terms of like what is my next move here in terms of keeping myself safe, of not even just keeping myself safe, but I mean I doubt that you're doing it for like highly competitive reasons, but it still is like a sport, right? There still
For
is.
sure.
So I love that
No,
so
and
much.
I do want to compete. I just, it's a process, like letting my nervous system heal. I actually did compete last March,
Oh,
and
hey.
that, yeah, it was. I'm glad I did, but I was a lot deeper, or a lot earlier on in the long COVID healing process at that point. So it was that was a challenge. But yeah, like in moment to moment in jujitsu, I mean, generally, like I train in an amazing gym, and the training partners they're all really good, but you do have to pay attention. And like, you could break your knee, like you could
Yeah.
shred your knee, you could pop ligaments, you could all sorts of things. You got to pay
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah, absolutely. I played lacrosse in college.
Hmm.
They offer jujitsu as like just this fun, like free thing that you could do. And so I started to take it just for like my own fun. And I mean, I loved it so much. My coach hated it though. He was like, I'm going to need you to stop doing this thing. You're going to hurt yourself. But I love the physical practices that we engage with that get to be another way to practice these tools and skills that we can navigate life with, right? Because whether it's jujitsu, one of my favorite things in terms of like, especially like the mental process behind it is rock climbing,
Hmm.
yoga, right? These movement based, body based things, they're not just sports. They're practices like meditation and anything else, and they're really opportunities to practice your discernment filter, your presence, your awareness, your discipline, your all the things.
Rock climbing's amazing. I went to a bouldering gym like last year and just tried it out a couple of times, and I kind of had to. I was the jujitsu gym and that place were far from where I lived, so I had to make a choice, and I chose jujitsu. But bouldering is really fun, and I hope to revisit that at some point. Like, yeah, I could see how that would be really almost addicting, to be honest.
I really want to invite everyone who's listening too to consider like are there any like body based things that I'll say like that you gift yourself with that aren't only like nourishing to the physical body, but that also again get to be another layer of your awareness practice, your spiritual practice, your growth practice, your discernment practice. Because yeah, the more we use those muscles, be them physical muscles or like our mental muscles or energetic, emotional, the stronger we are, the more stamina we have to live from that place more of the time. And it's in some ways, I want to say it's easier to do that in spaces like Arcadia, for example, right? Like there's so much intention like built into that party, ritual, ceremony, all the things. There's so much intention. But again, like we can bring as much intention as we want into our day to day. There's this book that I had read. It's called The Four Desires by Rod Stryker. And one of the things that he talks about, it's called D, like DHI. And it's this practice of listening to the prompts that come inside. So like, can you carve out maybe half of a day, or hey, maybe a full day, where your intention for that entire day is you're going to listen to whatever the desire is, whatever the prompt is, and you're not going to deny it. You're going to listen. So if it tells you to go to a coffee shop, you go to a coffee shop. If it tells you to talk to that person, even if you're feeling reclusive, you're going to talk to that person. And who knows where going to that coffee shop, talking to that person, right? You talking to that girl, me going back to say goodbye to my friend. Like if we can start to incorporate that kind of intention and intuitive way of living our life, I think life gets to be a lot richer, whether it's healing opportunities or expansion opportunities or connecting opportunities or, I mean, a plethora of things, but it's a soul-led life, essentially, when we allow ourselves to be guided from that place. And at the same time, it's hard to live a soul-led life if we're not looking at all of the shadowy ways that hold us back from that. If we're not willing to look at, that voice that was like, no, she's XYZ, not going to be interested, blah, blah, blah. Right? Like we have to be okay with that side of the spectrum too.
For sure. You just made me think of this. I don't know if you ever read like Paulo Coelho, like The Alchemist when you were younger, but yeah, it's when you connect, especially if you're doing the shadow work, but when you connect to those desires, especially the really deep desires that you don't normally connect to, like you're creating an opportunity for the soul of the universe, the language of the universe to speak through you, and then get into the flow of like synchronicity. And then there's a feedback process of tracking in your body what it feels like, for me, what it feels like when I am encountering those synchronicities and encountering synchronicity is the right word, like those significant moments that look like accidents and they're not. So yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. Oh, what a juicy conversation.
Yeah, this is so fun. And I wanted to say thank you. You were talking about the space at Arcadia, and that's really important. And our little ritual that we did before we started this was fantastic. And I think I really appreciate it. It made this conversation just so much easier and so enjoyable and safe. It gave me some inspiration for how I can do things with my own project moving forward. There's one other thing, but I lost it. Maybe it'll come back.
I saw you. I was like, oh, he's got something.
Yeah, there it went.
That's okay. No, thank you for saying that. And I wanna highlight something, like reflect something for you, but also for those, especially if you're watching this on YouTube. I super appreciate and love the way that you very often pause and breathe and feel as you're speaking and like before you respond. I love it because I feel like it's very common in our society to feel this like need to like respond right away, to have an answer, to like, it's almost like we're like thinking about the next thing before, like, and yeah, just permission for those listening to slow down, to like feel into what is true for you in the moment and to speak from that place. Because I feel like you're a beautiful example of that. Like getting to watch you do that has been very great. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks. I do my
Yeah.
best. I remembered the thing, by the way. So that day that we met, obviously, it was so funny the way it played out. And I've talked about this on my podcast like 4 times, but I shared, during the Q&A session with Aubrey, and it was like, do you remember it being cold in that room that day? So
It
there
was
was
cool.
like, there were the nerves, and I was doing my best to like let the energy circulate, but it was also cold, and I didn't have a jacket, so I was like shaking, holding the mic. It was great. But yeah, I shared with that room full of strangers how during a deep, I'm just gonna say it, like during a deep ketamine and cannabis experience, which ketamine has been, I haven't done it in months now, but like Jesus, that was probably the best medicine for me in the whole long COVID saga. Like what a powerful medicine.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous medicine too. That's the interesting thing. That might be part of why I like it, but because there's definitely there's a threshold that exists there that doesn't with things like mushrooms, and so it's interesting. But anyways, I shared how I had this vision about having they came through in like hey-hole of like having everyone on the planet. That's such a funny word. Having everyone on the planet like dance at the same time. And what was great about that and the friendships that I made was that like in that moment I was so overwhelmed that I actually had to like request to speak through Alexandra. Like I knew I could trust her, and
Mm.
I looked over. I was like, "Should I share the thing that I shared with you?" And she just kind of like laughed, and then tapped the guy on the shoulder and was like, "Hey, he has something to say." And I was like, "Yeah." And then he looked at me. He's like, "Do you?" I was like, "Yeah, I do."
I love
I
that
said
you
it
shared.
like that. I barely even could say the words, and so I really appreciate Alexandra for that. I'll make sure she sees this. Um, So magic, we were talking about that word. There are a number of reasons that I think this idea on the surface is a little bit controversial because of all the things that obviously people are experiencing in the world. And Aubrey, like when he was on stage and was kind of digesting the idea, and he sort of, it was really cool for him to acknowledge, like, oh yeah, man, like you had a really powerful experience. Like, thank you for sharing. That was awesome. He also acknowledged that there are places on the planet where people like aren't allowed to dance or to gather in that way. And so part of why I like it is all of the things that would have to happen first for it to work, but also it's the thing orienting those things happening. And so just to get ahead of the intention, which can certainly be refined, but to like recalibrate the energetic experience that human beings are having. And and what we assume is possible because if we can coordinate something like that, even if it's get 80% of the people on the planet involved, like that's a big opening up to our understanding of what can be done. And I also think it would not necessarily physically, but I think it would break a lot of shit, like patterns,
Mhm.
whatever. I don't know what the consequences of that would be, but I do have ideas for ways that we can start to participate in laying the groundwork for this, like creating the energetic circumstances and the shared intention. So it would be great to have you be a part of that.
Oh yeah, I'm totally down.
Awesome.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like bringing people together for anything is powerful, right? Like literally anything, which can be scary when you're looking at what is the intention behind these people gathering. But when you're looking at something like dancing, meditating, connect, yeah, it's very, very powerful. I really, yeah, I enjoyed your being brave and sharing that
Thanks. Were you
there
there?
and here. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Were you there for the moment afterwards where did you meet Juliet, the
Uh,
blonde, the blonde woman that came up and spoke to me afterwards?
I don't believe so.
It was so funny. She was like, I had her on my podcast like a couple weeks ago, but she came up to me right after that and was like, "Hey, I just want you to know I've had the same vision for a really long time now. And so it was a big moment for her, synchronicity thing when that got shared in that space. So
Heck
when
yeah, I love that.
yeah, when I was looking at, like, when she said that, I looked at her and it took me a second to even process what had just happened. Like, another person thinks the same thing. It was really a special moment.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad you remembered.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, I'll ask this. Is there anything else that feels to be shared before we start to wrap this up?
Y'all got this. I don't know what that means, but y'all got it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, can you share with everyone now just a little bit more about how they can stay connected with you? If there's, yeah, we'll start there. Stay connected with you. Is there anything that you want to share a little bit more about what you offer, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so as I said at the beginning, I am the host of the Magical Beast podcast, which has been really rewarding, and it's been a great experience. Hopefully, it will be published before this episode is. I think I've got 20 hours of content now, so I'm figuring out how I want to release that. And with the whole long COVID journey, I wasn't on social media for a few years, but I am on Instagram now. Just Dalen _Carr, DALEN _CARR. I have barely used it, but I realize I am somewhat obligated to start using it because I have a podcast. So eventually I'll post things there. And then also, I actually do work for the Gupta program now. So I have a full-time job for the first time in 2+ years. And I'm helping them migrate some really powerful content from an old app infrastructure. It's called the Meaning of Life Experiment. And that will be live hopefully this month, but certainly early in the new year. So if people want to look up the Meaning of Life Experiment created by Ashok Gupta, who created the Gupta program, that's really powerful spiritual content. A lot of free meditations and themed videos around manifestation and discernment, lots of fun spiritual topics. And we will be launching a coaching program in the new year to go along with that, but the core content itself is free.
Very cool. I'll make sure to put all of the links and information in the show notes.
Thanks.
Yeah, and also very cool that you get to work full time now with an organization that was so healing for you. Love that.
It is cool. Yeah. I mean, I did have one or two other part-time jobs that didn't last long a few months back. The original company I was at when I was sick was a very big tech company. They were really supportive. So I was able to at least receive part-time pay for a lot of the time that I was sick and on medical leave. When that ran out, spent a month or two just not having any income, and then tried a few things that didn't work, and then I wound up at the Gupta program. So it's like the most healing job I could possibly be at, as I try to get from like 80 to 85% recovered all the way to 100. So yeah, it's really, really cool.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right. Well, I just want to extend again a really big thanks to you for coming on here and sharing all of the stories and the tidbits and the lesson. It's beautiful, beautiful to hear from you. And a big thanks to everyone who's listening. One of the best ways that you can show your support for me, for Dalen, for this community, for this work really is to share this if you feel inclined, and to leave a rating and a review. And otherwise, we'll see you in the next video. Invite you to hop over and check out his podcast too. So yeah, thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you. That was so fun.
Yeah. All right.
Bye, everyone.